Some of the biggest oil companies in Nigeria, among them Shell, Chevron and Mobil, have been targets of militant groups in the oil-rich Niger Delta. They note that they've lost over 130 million barrels of crude oil between January and November, which roughly translates to $6 billion.
What we need to look at here is the multiplier effect of what is being lost in terms of manpower, in terms of income to third parties, in terms of all other ancillary services that would have generated income, to the domestic economy. So when you look at the implications of that, you will discover that what has been calculated is the losses in terms of money that the oil companies are not able to make.
Sadly, little progress has been achieved to rein in the militants despite numerous efforts. Instead, according to the report, more militant groups have sprung up. There are currently 32. President Muhammadu Buhari recently held direct talks with leaders from the Niger Delta region to craft a peaceful settlement, but more attacks followed. His government has now come up with a new bill that will shift the responsibility of pipeline security to oil companies and host communities in the Niger Delta.
I want to believe that that's actually the best way to go. If you recall, it just goes back to what we are talking about, community policing. By so doing, there's nobody that knows your terrain more than you do. And it's also a form of, a very, very important form of creating employment. When something goes wrong, you know who to hold responsible because the communities are actually in charge of the security of those pipelines.
Nigeria depends on oil for 70% of its revenue and 90% of its exports. But militancy in the oil-rich Delta region and fall in crude oil prices have cut the nation's earnings by more than half. Nigeria is teetering on the edge of depression after it contracted in 3 consecutive quarters. The report detailing the extent of losses incurred by the oil industry came just days before OPEC members agreed on a production freeze. Nigeria has been clamoring for a production freeze, and it could benefit immensely from subsequent price rise. But before that, it has to end militancy in the Niger Delta and increase production to 2 million barrels per day. Kelechi, Emekalam, CCTV, Abuja, Nigeria.